Evening, everybody. Hopefully, we're live. We should see that online in a minute. And I want to check my status. Okay, so we have quality options. We are tagged up for Terra Invicta. I am in a very foul mood, but we will persevere. And I'm gonna start by wrapping my blanket up. Uh-oh, oof, what? Algrins, did I make a loud sound? I hope you're well. But sorry, just rearranging myself. It is what it is. Um, I did get a walk. Actually, walking did wonders for me both over the weekend and today. But I didn't want to delay the stream too much. So I'm going to load into Terra Invicta a bit earlier. There is quite a bit for me to review for this playthrough, and I want to be as upfront as I can sort of at the start. I'm in a point here in this playthrough. So I'm not crazy about sort of how I've done this halting approach to Terra Invicta, and I'm still sort of cleaning up some stuff inside of the tutorial, but I do feel like I understand the game a lot better. And so I think it'd be kind of mean for me to reset the game. But I'm going to be doing some fairly reckless things today. And so just a fair warning on this, if you're expecting kind of a constant linear trend in terms of Terra Invicta, because I do know that there's a bit of a interest in this game, judging by the YouTube metrics. Specifically, my playthroughs. Obviously, there's some very good YouTubers who have kind of established themselves as Terra Invicta streamers. So whenever I make statements like this, I am obviously referring to relative terms. But just because there may be a few of you on YouTube who are interested in this game and my playthrough of it, it's possible if things go too nuts in terms of this playthrough, that I may reload the save. And then, of course, as I'm sure you've already figured out, and 2.5 minutes is already too long for introductions on YouTube, I really don't know how to shut up. So, again, my apologies. I realize the live format isn't always good for the YouTube crowd. I want to acknowledge and thank you all for hanging out with me on YouTube. But I do know that my style, especially the start, doesn't always work well for the sort of stuff that works on YouTube. I also wanted to take a quick second off the start. Yeah, thank you, Algrins. But I mean, there's the difference between the live and the VOD, right? Particularly if you're trying to learn Terra Invicta, and I'm going on these digressions about science fiction, which I think, again, just to be clear, the one thing that I haven't... Now, I don't admittedly watch a lot of YouTube, but the one thing that I haven't seen in a lot of the discussion is how I actually really feel that this game does a great job as a story about a Martian invasion. Well, I guess it's not Martian, but like of an alien invasion. If there's a Martian invasion, it's probably coming from us. Like whether you like Independence Day or you want to go all the way back to, Wells and War of the Worlds. I actually think this game is very interesting in the way that it tells a good alien invasion story. And I think particularly because some of my favorite Civilization games have been the ones where they go to science fiction and they maybe tell a little bit more of a story than than you normally expect from a Civilization game. I actually think it's worth taking the time to acknowledge that and to highlight that this is actually, for me, a differentiating feature for Terra Invicta, right? There are other grand strategy games out there. Maybe there are fewer grand strategy games that are focused on, on an XCOM-ish kind of setting. Obviously, XCOM doesn't own the alien invasion genre, but I think it's fair to say that that's certainly one that a lot of people are going to think of, and particularly because of Pavonis Interactive and the great work that they've done in terms of making a very popular mod for XCOM and XCOM 2. Actually, I believe they've made multiple mods for XCOM 2 at least. But I also wanted to take a quick second off the top and thank Hooded Horse for giving me a key for Terra Invicta. It is worth mentioning that I've been interested in this game for a very long time, up to and including, actually beyond the Kickstarter. But I was a Kickstarter backer as well. But I do want to acknowledge the Hooded Horse thing. One, just because obviously I'm really interested in the publisher, and I'm very grateful that they've been giving me some keys to cover their games. And I realized that, the more I endorse this sort of stuff, the more it may come into question in terms of where those recommendations are coming from. So I will leave it to you to decide. But I think the game very much speaks for itself in terms of the quality. But on top of that, sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. I was talking about being interested in it. But yeah, this is a tricky one for me, right? Because even had I not sort of, I don't know, to Hooded Horse's defense, I actually think they may have reached out to me, now that I think of it. No, that's not true. There was a couple tweets exchanged. But yeah, in any case, I'm very grateful, and I would have definitely covered this game anyway, but especially I got a chance to sort of do the demo of the game a little bit early, as well as the game itself a bit early. And I'm hoping that a number of you maybe wound up making a buying decision off of that, or at the very least, were able to talk a bit more about the game or become interested. And I know I've been delighted, actually. There's a few of you who've got me on Steam, and I've noticed a few of you have been adding things like Terra Invicta and At the Storm. A couple were wish lists, but I'm actually starting to notice a very large number of people buying some of the stuff that I play on Steam. And I don't want to... I don't think there's any value in attributing every single one of those to me. But I'm really liking the fact that at least from a couple of points, it seems fair to infer that a few people are finding some games that are special to them, and that is one of the very rewarding parts of streaming. So let's load the game. Was it really the 31st that I played this? Well, I guess that's about a week ago, so that would make sense. Now, I will confess, actually, I was very much enjoying Against the Storm, and I really wanted to try doing that. Today, but it occurred to me that the more I sort of jumble around Terra Invicta, the less progress I make, and I think as a result, that's for the people who are interested in Terra Invicta, I think that's frustrating. And then for myself, that's going to weaken my understanding of the game. So I've been, how you doing, DTG16? As I'm fond of telling people, I don't take attendance, but I am very happy to see you here. Every control point in a nation provides you some benefit, but the executive control point gives you control of that nation's policy. Laser damage fades at long distances, but larger optics and higher frequency beams can counteract this. I will just note I'm going to be doing a bit of a review in terms of my assets, but that's going to be just in terms of setting up the session today. So again, I was acknowledging the fact that I'm not very good at starting for YouTube. This is going to be a little bit of a, I think this is going to be a little bit of, how do I put it? It's going to test some people's patience, but I think this is worth it. Radiators on your ships cannot be armored and are... Okay, well, never mind. We're not doing ship combat yet. It's not important. He's been taking attendance all this time secretly. Judges us all when the time comes. The worth will be proven. Hail the giants. One of the things that actually almost made me... So I like this person quite a bit, personally. But one of the things that actually almost made me unfollow someone who I very much like on Twitch was someone who I had known, and I think I was late in following them. And then when I sort of followed them, I think to a certain extent there was that certain degree of sort of social awkwardness around the fact that it's like, oh, I'm into their stuff, but I haven't been following them. It's been a while, so just kind of I corrected the error or the oversight sort of when I logged into Twitch next. They weren't online. But when I came back onto their channel, the first thing they said to me, it's like, oh yeah, and I noticed that you just followed at such and such time. And like, again, I'm going to be really clear. I like this person quite a bit. I get along with them very well. I think they're a good guy. But that was actually enough to almost make me want to unfollow them. Because I'm like, look, I don't owe you a follow. Like, you know, thank you for putting me on the spot on your stream. You know, I did, you know, a nice thing. I'd like to see more of your stuff. But if this is the reward for good behavior, you know, what am I going to do here? Especially because, like, if you think of it, right, if you're trying to incentivize people to follow right away, well, you don't have a time machine. You can't say, oh, I should have followed this guy earlier. So yeah, it was incredibly off-putting. I also think there's a rookie mistake that people make on Twitch, and I was guilty of this, which is to watch the what is it? Like the active chat, or like the chat screen thingy, and to you know, like, just greet people as they come in. And what I learned quickly was that some people do like lurking, and very specifically do not like being sort of acknowledged or being called out, for lack of a better term. And so, you know, that was clearly off-putting to people, and they, you know, they decided to I noticed that people would sort of just blink off as soon as they were outed. Which, you know, absolutely fair enough, right? Like, that was clearly a mistake on my part to you know, to make people uncomfortable. But at the very least, in that case, that sort of not knowing any better and correcting the mistake as soon as it's identified. But yeah, like, again, I the one thing I don't want to do is be unkind to that broadcaster. But needless to say, that was a particularly off-putting little exchange, which almost kind of cost them the relationship, I guess. Yeah, exactly. I mean, some people, like, you know, a lot of people say it's like, oh, follows are free. And I'm like, well, yeah, but, you know, you've kind of just devalued the action that you want someone to take, right? Sorry, I do want to focus on Terra Invicta, but if a topic comes up and seems interesting. Apparently is called the Roaring Void. Just trying to get a little info on some of these details. It's like the one thing I'm curious about, because it's moving towards what is this? Therius. I'm curious if this is some sort of scout or if it's a mining ship of some kind. There's a few different ways that this thing could be like a few different ways this thing might work. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's not worth spending that much time on. But like, this is what I mean when I say, like, I don't take attendance and stuff like that. Is that in the end, people are going to decide how they want to spend their time. It would be nice if we had infinite amounts of time to do everything. I'd certainly get through more games if I did. But there's absolutely no value in making a big deal about the quote unquote correct behaviors. So, okay, let me just take a look. I hate being called out in streams. If you have it in the background or you're lurking, someone calls out your name, you don't respond, you look like a tool. Yeah, I mean, I hope people don't feel that you know, beholden to replying. Like, if someone doesn't respond, you know, it's a little bit like if, you know, I say hey to someone and they, you know, they don't want to talk. Like, it's good not to take that sort of stuff personally. You don't know where someone's at. So but yeah, I mean, I've definitely learned to let people initiate on Twitch. But that's definitely a counterintuitive observation, right? Like, you would think that you want to show yourself to be friendly, and particularly in a new stream when you don't have people to talk to. You you are looking for those opportunities to start discussions on things. So, being able to say hi, particularly if you're trying to build your social skills, which I know some streamers are trying to do, it's actually not a bad way of doing it. It can be a it's like one of those ones that, sometimes you just got to burn your hand on the stove to learn not to do it, but it's definitely one of the more counterintuitive sort of consequences of kind of being on Twitch. Okay, let me just I'll just take a quick second here and follow up with a couple more comments, and then we're gonna do the review of the state of the world. Most of the time when people lurk like that, it's essentially them in the background doing stuff. If we all know the stream is muted. Oh man, if it's muted, then I'm in real trouble. There's absolutely nothing valuable I do. And then follows also clog up your subs channel, and if you're not actively pursuing your content, you may not want your channel on your my follow page. There are definitely a few people where I sort of feel I was obliged to follow, but I don't think that's a terrible place to be. I've usually been pretty generous with my follows, I think. Whether or not that's a good idea is another question, but okay. So there's a few problems that I'm trying to overcome with this playthrough. So one of these is that I've actually fallen behind on contributions to science. And that's on everything. But I also want to make sure that management research is done, and I also want to make sure that the arrival outpost mining complex are done. So unfortunately, I really don't have a good way of getting my tempo back. Actually, that's not entirely true. I could amp these up like so. We'll see if that does the trick. I did just push out the completion of management research, which is a high priority for me. So I went with the I went Mexico. I did wind up eventually getting the US and Canada, but this has caused the biggest problem. So we were like really ruling the roost as far as actually there's no point in trying to do arrival international relations this way, because we've contributed 323 and they've contributed 699. So in fact, you can make the same argument for arrival domestic politics. So we are within shooting distance of solid core fission systems, though. So this will help us out a little bit, getting management research back on track. Yeah. I was gonna try to unify North America, and this is just because, again, we're drowning as far as our cap is concerned. Now, clearly, I've abandoned most of Central America. Actually, possibly all of it. There's a couple of other things that I can try doing, but at some point I'm probably going to have to abandon Mexico. And one other thing I might try doing is just kind of gobbling up a few nations and abandoning them right away, so I can say that I've sort of done that. Now, one thing that I will want to think about in terms of future playthroughs is the fact that Canada didn't have much of a space program, but under, I guess it was the Protectorate? I can't remember who we took this from, but it wound up with a 2.5 in terms of the boost income. So that's actually kind of nice, and it maybe suggests to me that I'm a little too worried about getting existing space programs as opposed to building my own. So I mean, again, I've got kind of the world as it is. I'm not gonna worry too much about trying to sort of undo some of this stuff, but it is worth it is kind of worth considering. Also, I will note which one was this? Yeah, the Benelux. So this is up to 4 now. Good news is Protectorate is kind of on our side, so the North Korean space program is the best space program. Where is their boost? No boost. And Humanity First has it, so. Oddly enough, nobody's gone for China. I would not be surprised if if Humanity First wound up going for it. But if we take a look at popularity, it's actually the servants that are doing quite well. So that may be something I want to pay some attention to. In fact, the servants have also got themselves set up in India, and rather like with a fairly good position. So I may want to play around with that. It's hard to see whether the academy or the servants are my bigger worry right now. Yeah, Baikonur, the kind of, or the start of U.S. spaceflight. We did actually have Kazakhstan at some point. The problem is that all of that boost income goes into Russia, which is pretty much dominated by Project Exodus. So I was going to try to get the independence for Kazakhstan, and for whatever reason I didn't seem to be able to do that. But you can actually notice there's a couple of holdovers from these two. So we did actually have Kazakhstan, but again, the real key on this one here, if you take a look at the breakdown of the income, oh, this is just a breakdown for me, but yeah, like the actual boost is 2.8, and then if we compare that to Russia, oh, hang on. That can't be right. Oh, yeah, no, sorry, I think I'm getting this. So this section shows the total production of national resources and the share granted to the resistance through its control points. If the nation is part of a federation, it shows the shared funding and boost granted to the nation, which are substitutes for domestic values. Hang on. Section shows the total production of national resources and share granted to the resistance through its control points of the nations part of the federation. Yeah, I always find this one a little trickier to read. But as you can see, like, the big thing that you see here is that Russia doesn't actually generate a lot of boost on its own. It comes from its its components. What's weird though is that when it points out the Eurasian nation and that 0.38, like, I can't quite reconcile the two numbers. Anyways, it's not really something I'm considering at the moment because I've got my plate full with North America. So there were a couple of things that I was considering. Number one, so we're at 238 in terms of control compared to our 184. Now, I think in a future playthrough, one thing I'm going to do is try and get as much administration as possible, because administration will not only just improve my ability to control nations, but it also gives more access to the organizations. Right, these things here. And so, with that in mind, it basically means that even if I've got sort of some pretty disappointing attributes, if I've got administrative geniuses, then they just get augmented with a bunch of their, they just get augmented with a bunch of the organizations. Now, it's a little late for me to be messing around with that. One thing I'm a little bit worried about, so it's nice to have the CSE and Joint Task Force 2, but both of them cost a lot of influence, and I'll go to 0. So in this case, I really do not want to be buying these right now. I don't think I have any unassigned orgs, right? Yeah. And I think it's just the 2 Canadians. Yeah. So in future, I think one thing I'm going to do is put a lot more effort in terms of raising the administration of my different counselors. Now, one thing I am going to do, and this is going to be a little tedious for people who haven't seen this or who are kind of familiar with the game. I have actually done this before, but I want to take sort of a review of my counselors, because there's going to be a couple of different approaches that I take with my influence. Also, I'm getting a little bit better at reading the quotes. So, all struggles are essentially power struggles. Who will rule? Who will lead? Who will define, refine, confine, design? Who will dominate? All struggles are essentially power struggles, and most are no more intellectual than 2 rams knocking their heads together. Octavia Butler. So we're going to go to the Codex, and like we did sort of near the start, we're going to go and take a look at missions. So we're going to go to the missions list, and I want to get a full list of all of the different missions and their stats. So, control nation. Crackdown. One of the things that I'm doing here is I'm taking down the mission and then also its so this is influence here, or should, I guess it doesn't. That's weird that doesn't point that out, actually. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong. Okay, so basically I want the name of the mission, its attacking modifier as far as a stat is concerned. And then I'm not so worried about what we spend, but I am definitely interested in the stat. So purge. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be evaluating my current counselors. So espionage for that. I'm going to be evaluating my current counselors based on the missions that I need. Okay, so coup, command, defend interests, public campaign. So that one needs persuasion. Okay, set national policy is really just a question of do we have that or not. Advise. So that one technically requires a number of different traits, but I'm going to leave that aside. Increase unrest. That's not the most important, but it is nice to have. That's command probably, yeah. So it's just kind of playing the long game as far as the enemy is concerned. Stabilize is the reverse of that. Sabotage facilities. Now, I've never really had a need for this, but we may want to consider it. Sabotage hab module. Surveil location. That's not too important. Investigate. Clearly investigate. Or investigation, a stat. Detain counselor. Assassinate. I'm assuming turn count. Actually, I was going to say turn counselor was probably going to be espionage, but that's actually probably persuasion. Yeah. Extract counselor. Hostile takeover. Sabotage project. Steel Project. Inspire. So that's going to require persuasion. Protect is security or command. I think go to ground is probably free for everyone. Go to ground. Sorry, contact just costs influence. Orbit, deorbit. Should be getting near the end. Transfer. And then control space assets. Persuasion definitely feels like a very strong one. Okay, assault enemy space assets. Investigate alien activity. And then assault alien assets. Okay, so the trick behind this is that I'm going to take a list of counselors now, and I want to see what they're capable of. Zero-sum outcomes. My apologies for not noticing you before. How you doing? Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I think the intention behind the game is that even if you get sort of knocked out of your choice places, it still should be viable to continue with the playthrough. Now, I don't know how well the game actually delivers on that, but I think that's a really admirable goal. Because there's an anecdote Sid Meier tells about Civilization, which is like it's basically about the tendency for players to sort of sabotage their own enjoyment of a game. And the idea basically is that every time that you would lose combat, people would reload. Even if it was something where it was sort of like against the odds, they still sort of felt entitled to that win. The other thing that they would notice would be, and incidentally, it's really funny to see for Civilization 6, a lot of the stuff that was originally removed from Civilization has actually now made its way back in on sort of this 25th anniversary game. But basically, as far as Civ was concerned, one of the things they would notice is that like people would take natural disasters, which obviously had precedent in terms of things like SimCity, and they would just kind of assume that the game was like mad that they were running ahead and it was doing something to stop them. When of course it wasn't. What the intention was is you'd go to a low point so that you can sort of have the big, and then from the ashes, came my supreme victory. But the challenge is that our natural inclination is to give up and reset when that happens. So this is one of the reasons why games like Civilization, but not just Civilization, will use seeded random numbers. We've gone over this quite a bit for those of you who were watching Darkest Dungeon, because there was someone in there who was really determined to convince me that Darkest Dungeon was not a good game. Because they were mad and they didn't want to admit that basically they didn't like losing, and they like kept trying to crash out the game and get a favorable outcome. It's obviously what they were doing, but I happen to know this person was like really invested on this idea of being like John Gamerson, the ultimate gamer. And so eventually I just like, they were getting kind of annoying about it. So I did eventually just kind of call them out, and I said, like, this experiment you ran was probably just crashing the game and seeing if you could get another outcome. And because of seeded random numbers, you are always guaranteed to get the same outcome, right? The random numbers for your playthrough have already been generated at the start of the project. So this did not make them convinced that Darkest Dungeon is a great game, by the way, but it did at least shut them up as far as trying to convince me that the game I was enjoying, I wasn't enjoying. But in any case, like, this is one of the ways that game designers will try and how do I put it? Like, it's one of the ways that they try to save us from ourselves. And so, given these tendencies, I really like the fact that Terra Invicta, at least on paper, does seem to be built in such a way that you can still possibly go from, like, just being at the absolute bottom to sort of staging a big comeback. I think part of that has to do with the fact that there's, like, a really big, grand tech tree. So, if something doesn't work out, so I'm trying to sort of unify North America. If that doesn't work out for me, well, presumably there's other parts of the world that I can try and control myself. And obviously things like the caps and all of that are intended to keep people from becoming these hyperpowers. But whether or not it actually practically turns out that way is a whole other question. There's an achievement for the Resistance to make a comeback after losing. Oh, that's really interesting. I don't really go over achievements until I've gotten them. But anyway, sorry, I've been sort of filibustering a bit. The thing that I'm trying to decide here, right, is I'm losing so much influence from being over my cap. Clearly, if I could do it all over again, I would invest a lot more in the administration, but I can't. And so the question now would be, if I want to replace some counselors, now is the time to do it, right? I've got 100 influence, and right now I'm just doing an audit of the things that I have access to. And chances are I'm not going to want to replace them, but the one thing I do want to do is at least verify that for myself, work out an idea in terms of what I think is, I don't know, worth doing. Like, so for example, when I take a look at influence income, right, I've actually got quite a bit coming in from these counselors. So that's another thing that I want to keep in mind in terms of the ledger. Now, admittedly, for that, it's a bunch of, it's likely in this case a bunch of, sorry, wrong guy. It's likely just the organizations, but still, it's the sort of thing that I want to keep track of. And then more importantly, if there are going to be replacements, I want to make sure that I'm getting the missions, like I want to make sure I have a good balance of missions. So let's start here with Nancy. Nancy is able to control nations. That takes persuasion, though, so that's a 2. They are able to set national policy, which doesn't have a number, and advise, which is fine. Surveil location, which is from an organization, but still not bad. Investigate counselor has a need, or has a stat, so that's a 6 right now. Detain counselor is also investigation. Sabotage project, which is espionage, which is probably in the toilet. Yeah, 0, so it doesn't mean much. Steal project, same story. Go to ground, contact, orbit, deorbit, control space assets, persuasion. So that's 2. Yeah, so Nancy was one of my starting counselors, and they actually don't do that much. But investigate alien activity is helpful. So there we go. I should probably take a quick look here. So aware, particularly skilled at directing other counselors, +1 to investigation. Eminent, influential among elites, but well known. Okay, yeah. Astronomer, bonus to space science, quick learner. Cool. I know you said that you weren't telling me what to do, but man, if you look over your last few messages, DTG, it sure does seem like you're telling me how to play this game right now. Alright, so we're going to go on to Hyrong here. particularly on the Mexico thing. I did say that earlier in the playthrough. I am not as stupid as I look. Alright, crackdown, persuasion... sorry, investigation 5. Purge is a espionage 2. Coup d'etat is a command. Oh man, this guy's got skills all over the place. Okay. Defend interests, public campaign is persuasion, so we're definitely using him for the right stuff, but again, set national policy, advise, don't have, surveil, doesn't matter, investigate is investigation. Some of this stuff definitely isn't aligned with his skills. Okay. This sort of stuff I like because he's it's a short list of things where they can actually work on it. And government affluent counselor. Ah, nice. Cynic. Interesting. And inflexible. Ah, okay, that's very interesting. Ruby, my criminal. There's no possible way I'm going to have enough space on this sheet, but I will worry about that when I get there. Espionage. Wait, not espionage for the... Or is it? Purge? Hang on. Nope, yep, that's an espionage. Okay, so Ruby's definitely where I go to get rid of the bad guys. Actually, Ruby's turned out to be a pretty effective counselor. I think we originally got her out of, kind of out of a need for a, there's a need for an extra body, but she's got kind of all of the stuff that we're looking for. Espionage is 7, right? Yeah. Okay, detain counselor is investigation, so that one's maybe not as exciting. We've got, I'm pretty sure Nancy's actually better at doing that. Assassination, same story. No, hang on. Assassinate is espionage, so that's actually a good one. Although it's hard to assassinate unless you're in very favorable territory. Now, Ruby's not my best administrator, but not my worst either, so that's 6. Steel project is almost certainly espionage. So yeah, like Ruby Byrne is a great example of a counselor. Like in general, I like this counselor quite a bit because of the fact that their best stats are also focused on the types of missions that they can work on. You finally unlocked your 6th counselor in 2036. You honestly forgot about it. Yeah, the hardest one for me, like, so I've been kind of going through the tutorial again. I went through the tutorial in the demo, and as you can tell, like, I do a lot of talking, and I try to reason through how I'm approaching this sort of stuff, because, like, I don't know, to me it's the way that I like not just blob Europe and like, you know, play the game the way everybody else does. Like, it is kind of fun to see if you can it's fun to see if you can, you know, you can do something and have some ownership over your own playthrough. Now, again, if you want to do well right away, chances are following the community advice is probably a good idea, but it's about what makes you interested in playing a game. But one of the consequences for this is that it's really hard looking at 2024. Like, you know, I'm assuming this is still the early game. We're making some space assets here, but oh, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, because, like, this is the big challenge, right? Is that Africa has resources. One of the things that I tend to do is not really unite Africa, but I've tried an initiative playthrough where basically I got Africa for a bunch of really cheap, really cheap pickups that would give me a lot of resources. And then that would sort of give me a foundation on which to build to the countries that would like give me the sort of research and all the stuff that I really wanted. I don't know how viable that is, but like it is such an in character way of playing the initiative, right? Like just really sticking it to the poorest nations, but ones that are very rich in natural resources, and just sort of like, sucking them dry like a tick. But I don't I haven't ever really thought of using Africa as anything but an opportunity to pick up some resources that I need to move on the other regions. Anyways, where was I? I was talking about assassination. Okay, extract counselor needs command. Wait a minute, but we wrote down... Okay, that's fine. Steal project. Did I... Yeah, I got that. Protect target. That's got to be... Oh, hang on. No, that doesn't have a stat. And then assault enemy space asset. I got to figure out how the Marines work for that, but I'm going to leave that for a later investigation. Okay, Whammo. So this is another one of my big persuaders. So the thing is, you can see that I'm really geared towards controlling new nations, but because I'm already at my cap, that doesn't necessarily help me as much. It in fact is making me... This is why I'm saying that I would put more points into administration in the future, because it feels like the administration option, like, buying and selling organizations, is a good way to sort of customize your counselors to a... I mean, like right now for my characters, basically they're kind of these absorbing states. They'll take anything. But if I was really kind of trying to make the most of it, what I would do is I just kind of pick and choose organizations around the traits that I wanted to augment. So, if I'm in a situation where maybe I want to cause more disruption for my opponents, put those points in investigation and espionage to be able to crack down and purge different nations. Okay, national policy and advised doesn't do anything. Turn counselor is persuasion. That's good, although I don't think... I don't know what happens if you turn a counselor and you're already full up. Okay, inspire, that's a persuasion one too, right? Yeah. So Waymo's kind of like the Ruby for my soft skills. They're very good at persuading, and they have a bunch of missions that are... Oops. They have a lot of missions that are all in line with those goals. Also, I'm probably going to wind up sending them to the moon to start controlling some space assets when the time comes. How you doing, Tikri? Very good to see you again. Use a mod to limit one organization per counselor. You personally feel that orgs are overpowered when you can have 15 on a single character. Getting there. I think Ruby Burns also... Oh, maybe not. Was it 13? I thought I had somebody with more. I'm of two minds about it. I think the one thing that is fair to say is that the way orgs work right now does make administration this very dominant trait. So the fact that I can raise my my cap and control more countries, and in addition, there's no cost in terms of, unbalancing my character's stats, that in theory I could wind up picking up a bunch of organizations that replace the the experience that I would have been putting in. I feel like that, like generally it sort of feels like when you make a game, you don't want there to be like one stat that you always want to max out. And I'd feel like in a future playthrough, I'd probably want to max out the administration before I do anything else. Maybe I'm wrong in that. But I don't necessarily think that that's a problem with organizations, because, in principle, the bad guys are picking up a bunch of organizations too. But But I don't know. Like, again, the drawback about being very deliberative in my approach to the game is that I don't get to sort of kind of knock around and just, you know, try a bunch of different stuff and sort of see what works and what doesn't. Irina's my last, yeah. So I do have space. Now, Irina's probably the most likely one to get sacked. She was the last one who I brought in, and also is the one with the lowest administration. In fact, the administration point that she does have is actually a result of me augmenting that. So it's a tough call. The thing is that she has a lot of missions that a bunch of other people don't have. So that's the catch. And as you notice, she's got a little bit of everything. So, Crackdown. That's an investigation, and she's at 4. So I only have 2 counselors that have Crackdown, for instance. Purge is espionage, and I thought she was a pretty good spy. Yeah, 6. Coup, command, 5. So, to those of you who are noticing, so some of you may not be familiar with Terra Invicta, but are looking at what Zero Sum Outcomes is talking about. For the benefit of people who may be watching this on YouTube, the comment was, I use a mod to limit 1 organization per counselor. I personally feel that orgs are overpowered when you can have 15 on a single character. You had a character on a previous save who was giving you an almost 200% increase in mining yield on 1 counselor. That's ridiculous. And then the operatives are my favorite counselors, just a separate comment. The challenge that I'm talking about for Irina is the fact that her administration's very low, and so the capacity is, I'm not able to get all of those bonuses. And if you notice that overall, Irina's stats are not that impressive compared to the other counselors, and a lot of that is the fact that, you know, you've got a guy on my team who, like, so let's just take the most ridiculous example, right? So Weimao has control of the International Monetary Fund, as well as, like, you know, a semiconductor, company and all of that. Like, tons of different organizations. And if, you know, in theory, right, they could become the head of MI5 and the first U.S. Special Forces Group and Joint Task Force 2 and the Communication Security Establishment. And all of this stuff would just make this guy this monstrous, you know, person who's able to sort of do everything. But it is also fair to say, right, there is a reason why we call the president, one of the most powerful people in the world. It is because they have access to, to those tools, and they are able to, they're able to work them. And I think this is why I'm a little bit more moderate on what Zero Sum is saying about the administration, because if you sort of think about it, right, that what this game is, and it, being a lot of influence and trying to, steer humanity towards what you think the best course is, I think there is a place for the ability to manipulate different organizations and in an interesting way. And so, I think you could say, right, if you think about this game as sort of being, XCOM as a grand strategy game and less about the tactics, and instead you're, maybe the council member or something along those lines, then yeah, your ability to administer things is actually really, really important. Your ability to sort of bring together the nations of the world to achieve your faction's ends as opposed to another faction's. Definitely persuasion and administration would be the sorts of things you would prioritize for that kind of an approach. And of course, as we're learning, and I mean, as has been modeled in the game, the ability to have, you have the option of trying to do those sorts of things through force, but that can prove very costly. Obviously, a lot of the prosperity of the modern world rests on the fact that we didn't necessarily conquer places and make them think the way that we did, but rather... Oh, actually, this is really cool. So I think the government communications headquarters is the British version of the Communication Security Establishment. But yeah, I mean, again, like it is kind of neat that they're modeled inside. Both of those options are modeled inside the game. So again, you could presumably just send your tanks out and unify the world through conquest. but there are costs for doing so, and it may not necessarily be the best long run way of achieving your goals. Anyways, I do apologize. That was a long digression. Let's go back. Increase unrest requires command. Stabilize, same story. So Irina is actually the only person who can stabilize as well. Sabotage facilities and hab module. I messed up. There we go. Sorry, I'm writing this all down so that I don't have to do it again, but it's I'm doing it on a tablet and I don't have a proper grid, so it's a little bit of a minefield to make sure I'm not writing in the same column. So the more I think of it, there's actually a lot more overlap between Irina and Ruby than I had originally thought. Which is not necessarily bad, but again, it does raise that question as to whether or not I'm getting everything that I need with somebody with such a low influence. Okay. Also interesting to note that Irina is the only person who has assault alien asset. So the first thing that I would do, again, so what are we trying to accomplish here? We're trying to see whether or not we can get by with we're going to see if we can get by with our or to bring our. Basically, we want to try and manage our cap in such a way that we're no longer hemorrhaging influence. So, one of the first things that I would consider would be... Oh, do I not get to... I feel like I should be able to see the people who I can recruit before firing someone, no? That's a non-starter if I have to dismiss before I bring in. Oh, here we are. Okay, so let's think a little bit about... So I guess one of the first things I would say is, like, what are the things that I'm trying to improve? Well, administration, first of all. So who are the characters that have the most administration? Most people, I would only be able to hire one, again, because this is why I'm making this decision now and not doing this later on in the playthrough. I'm essentially deciding whether or not I can afford to burn some influence for the time being. So the best that I've got here are 7, although there's a couple 6s, like there's a 6 and a 5 as well, which are, fair enough kind of options. But what we want to look at is, what do they get me as far as missions? So we've got more than enough control nations. Defend interests is kind of interesting because... Oh, I didn't even write this stuff down. So it is actually good to know who can do that, but too late. So stabilize nation, that is something that Irina is bringing to the table. Persuasion's not bad for turn counselor. But we don't have assault alien asset. So if I fire Irina in favor of Serarian, I lose the ability to attack alien assets. So the nice thing about this is that this actually tremendously simplifies my selection process, right? If I don't have a character that can replace the loss of the assault alien asset, I'm probably not going, even if they have like 1 million well, maybe 1 million, but like if they don't have the ability to assault the alien asset, it doesn't matter how much administration they have. I've lost the ability to do something pretty important given what my missions are right now. So Shujin is not really good at anything. Control nation, purge, defend interest, set national policy, hostile takeover, go to ground, contact. I mean, great for the administration, right? And they'll certainly be very good for my, my pocketbook. I think this influence number might be annual, and that's actually one thing that might help out with Irina. It just occurred to me. So let's see here. So if we say, so 1.9 from counselors, yeah, so that's definitely a different number. So I wish when you moused over it would explain, or maybe if they just chose a single unit of measurement. But yeah, as you can see here, right, Irina's not necessarily bringing a lot in terms of influence, but I also think at 8, like if the combined total of my counselors is bringing 1.9, there's no single individual who's going to wind up there's no single counselor who's going to be able to bring that gap. Yeah, there's some outcomes. It's not that I'm confused about the texts that allow me to do that. It's the fact that I'm losing 4.8 a month, I believe. Oh, no, sorry, a day. So the fact of the matter is that I need to get the control point. I need to get the cap under control, or I need to acknowledge that I'm going to have 0 influence and determine whether or not I'm okay with that for the time it takes me to do the research. If you look at the research that I'm doing, I'm actually following that path with Arrival International Relations and Arrival Domestic Politics. But the catch is that that's actually also what made me lose the science race against these two groups. I'm also working on management research, but again, because I used to be sort of dominating the global research agenda, the catch here was that by switching to the social sciences, I actually wound up sort of sabotaging my dominance of global affairs, which again is fine. But part of this is just a question in terms of trying to navigate the short term as I move towards that overall goal of unifying North and hopefully South America as well. But obviously the North America one is a very, very costly effort, and so I'm probably going to want to unify Central America, which won't really help me with my cap, by the way. But yeah, I want to try and figure out what those intermediate steps are going to be before I go too much further. Okay, so the 2 7 counselors aren't going to help me out here, although again, tempting with a very high influence. We've got Kevin Trullis, which again doesn't have the assault alien asset. Investigate alien activities, kind of tempting here, but again doesn't have what we need. And the rest of it, I'm just kind of taking a quick peek at the marketplace. Yeah, we really just don't have the talent pool to be able to make this work out. So the final remaining question based on what I've got here is whether or not I'm comfortable letting Mexico go. I think what I'm going to do here is we're going to clear out the executive first, and the really heartbreaking part about this is we did defend our interests in Mexico, but I don't know if I'm confident enough to let my influence go to 0. So we're about ready to unpause. I just want to take a second here and see what happened in the world. So Japan and Gulf states are allies. Germany and Canada have ended their alliance. United Kingdom and Australia have ended their alliance. These are, of course, the machinations of the initiative. We've already assigned people. Okay, this is fine. Some of these I remember from before. Iceland is using its latest breakthrough to lobby for scientific funding. I wonder if that's maybe why we saw some disruption with Project Exodus. Okay, these ones I'm not as worried about. Hairong failed the crackdown, fair enough. Although we've already got Canada, so that's not a worry. We're also losing some boost because of the space costs. But that will hopefully be solved in June when we start building mining. Probably not. I don't know if there's a way for me to check that because I don't have a very good... I don't really know what's going on in the world. So the initiative has definitely been the ones who steal a lot of my stuff out from under me. So they are... Okay, so servants and Exodus are... Yeah, so the initiative is... I mean, they're probably not going to be able to take Mexico, but they're definitely not going to... Humanity First hasn't actually really been eating my lunch too much, but they're also... Or, I don't know. We'll see. I will probably wind up giving up Mexico at some point, but at the very least I want to get the titles back. Alright, let's watch the madness happen. So the good news is we have access to all the resources that we want. The bad news is we can't mine any of them yet. This is definitely an opportunity here. Again, it's not so much that I want these points for Iran, it's more that I want to... It's more that I just want to deny the servants resources. I keep forgetting we've been going for recently.
I have new information.
We've improved our knowledge about Kuvam Gantear. We know the target's identity, affiliation with the Protectorate, and work as a scientist. So I think this was just me... I think this was because they were causing me a little bit of trouble in my own regions.
We're winning their hearts and minds.
So the plan here, the other thing I've been working on is just also trying to work on the income side of influence. Now, we have been focusing on the United States at least until we get past the 50% point before we move to other regions. But another thing that I've been doing is trying to do a bit of a charm offensive on the rest of the world.
Our people are in charge.
Nice. Okay, so I'm probably just going to wind up giving up Cambodia right away, but supporters of the resistance have engineered a coup d'etat in Cambodia, resetting all control points and taking some control there. Taking some control there under the regime. Some unrest has abated, and the factions that supported the insurgents by contributing to unrest may gain control points under the new regime. Coup d'etat is a success. My coup attempt in Cambodia was a success, and we have rearranged the power structure there. Executive power over this nation now belongs to the resistance.
Our cause is unjustified to them.
Alright, that's unexpected. 92 though, so I think we'll put them on permanent assignment to Venezuela for a little bit. And I do want to abandon the country. Normally what I wind up doing is getting rid of spoils and putting that into knowledge, but I suspect when we abandon it's not going to follow our guidelines anymore. Unification. The European Union, under the control of the Academy and the Northern Balkan states, have decided to merge into a single nation. So yeah, it is a big worry for me that the EU is growing under the factions that are most favorable to the aliens. We did sort of acknowledge that we would be giving up Europe to the other factions, but I probably should have put my hand on the scales more in Ooh. Oh, that's not as big of a deal for me. Back to Earth, please. But yeah, I definitely should have been putting my hand on the scales a little bit more for creating some more trouble in
We're
Europe.
in control here.
Okay, so this is good.
Wrapping up here.
We don't have the defense in Mexico anymore, but we do have the option of ditching it, and I think I'm gonna... I mean, we'll suffer for the science, but we're back in black as far as the numbers go. So the best thing that I can maybe do is make sure that if I do start seeing some counselors show up in this region, that we hit them with a club. All right, Pakistan under the control of the Initiative and Mexico have ended their alliance. That's fine. Denmark under the control of the Protectorate and Canada have ended their alliance. Benelux under the control of the Protectorate and Canada have ended their alliance. Ukraine and Russia are now allies. Russia and the Baltic states are now allies. Japan and Iraq are now allies. Benelux and Canada have ended their alliance. Well, these are just reporting what we had before. Okay. And what else do we have? So our defend interest missions in the United States have expired. So this is one that I'm definitely gonna put the effort into, especially now that we're we've sort of abandoned Mexico. Where else? So that's fine. Okay, so we're already working on charming the population.
Ready.
Now, question is, what do I want to do with Nancy Ford? Could always just try some control and then abandon the nation, as silly as that sounds. The good news is it does give them something to do. So I guess the next question would be, if I do want to try that trick, where do I want to expand my influence? Presumably into South America.
Control.
Yoders.
And then, of course, with Irina, it's always a question of where do I want to cause the most trouble. So, there's two paths that I can take, which is I try and dislodge, existing powers. So, it's the Academy that's going to be deciding to unify. So we presumably would try a crackdown in France, but we just don't have any standing there. So, wow. I suppose the other alternative would be we coup some of the regions, purge or coup some of the regions that are favorable to hostile powers. So the fun here is which of these are just high probability coups. Right now I'm just kind of window shopping for causing trouble in the world. No coup in Iran. Yeah, so basically it comes down to Africa. I suppose the other thing here is that when we look at Africa, it's really just a question of regions that people have already abandoned. Which, again, fair enough. So, as a next best, let's think about who we can purge. So one appealing approach would be to start with Portugal, go through Spain, and kind of gain a foothold in the European Union. And also just try and take Dublin because it's something related to the servants. I don't know, for some reason I'm really focused on Portugal right now. I think if I do it here, it'll give me a list of probabilities as well. So Chad, the Philippines, Upper Guinea, Denmark, Ireland are the most likely, and targeting somebody who I really don't like. I think we're still going to go for Portugal.
Terminating the opposition.
And again, it's not so we can keep it, it's just so that we can kick out the bad guys.
Securing our interests.
Okay, that's good. As always, I want to keep a close eye on what's happening in Mexico, but otherwise we're really just waiting for the turn to finish and eventually getting to a point where we can get the where we can start getting some mines.
The people will come to our side.
If the AI got
Public
China,
sentiment
I
is
mean,
increasingly with us.
the most likely, so it's either the servants or humanity first. If humanity first got it, that's not a bad thing. If the servants got it, I would kind of have to, I don't think I could kind of take that lying down. It's a little bit like what's happening with Europe, right? I need to try and, oh, interesting. I need to try and stop this thing from growing bigger than it already is. So I'm guessing that ship that we saw moving out was getting ready to build another station. Which in principle means that they might be... Was it Neptune? I thought they had one that was going near Mercury. But they're expanding, and we have still been dragging our feet in getting... Interesting. I was not expecting the initiative to do that. That's probably going to be a tough one to get back.
Our enemies are still in control.
Okay, we'll repeat that for... Oh no, actually, I'm probably going to kick out Irina for that. Well, no, Ruby's better at...
Our supporters are in place. Wrapping up here.
Well, we're still making a positive number on influence, so we'll grab as much of that as we can. But yeah, we're going to send Ruby to... Oh, Cambodia. Thailand has proposed ending its rivalry with Cambodia and returning to normal relations. Do we accept? That's controlled by... Yes, that's fine. Confirm. Okay, so... First question is, can we get Ruby to just straight up take the tile? Looks like we can.
Removing our enemies. Ready for orders.
So Nancy's going to go working on Colombia again. Now,
Bringing
the
them
goal
to
here
our
is not
side.
so much to take Colombia, but because we're still in the black as far as the as far as influence is concerned, I'm not going to go out of my way to worry about this either. Yeah, I think we're just going to keep the rest, unless we're past 50% on... Yeah, we're not. And where were you?
Standing by.
I'm here.
Getting there. Wait. Yeah, we have a lot that we're waiting to get from Venezuela. Now, science-wise...
You'd think a threat this big would finally make us abandon old grudges and band together. But humanity always finds a way to hurt itself, doesn't it? Commander Fiona Ayawade, undated letter.
So this was definitely one of the research projects we were trying to... This was one in favor for our goals, but because the Academy sort of ran ahead, we're kind of at the point now where they're going to decide the next research. The next one that I'm a little worried about is Project Exodus over here. Now we may be able to catch up with them. I should have been taking some notes on that, so I'm going to do that here. But let's see what Arrival Domestic Politics gets me. Whether embracing egalitarian ideals or enforcing authoritarian edicts, maintaining the cohesion of a nation is challenging work and prone to collapse even during the natural ebb and flow of societal progression. As populations across the world contend with a new reality that an extrasolar species has turned its eye upon us, the challenge is far greater than ever before, and we can no longer look to our own history for solutions or predictions. Will these aliens bring enlightenment or extermination? Will their arrival herald a new age of opportunity or result in a curtailing of freedom? And most of all, how will each given nation respond to this unprecedented visitation? Each society's reaction to this seismic event will shape the destiny of every person within its hierarchy for decades to come. New policies, new laws, and a breathtaking amount of bureaucracy will be required if any semblance of order is to be maintained. The world's leaders must prepare accordingly. So we can get arrival law. Following projects may unlock for research in the future. Our current chance to unlock a project once all prerequisites are fulfilled is also shown: institutional outreach and strategic lobbying. So I'm going to take a quick second on the tech tree. So first of all, I want to see what this new tech's going to get me. But this comes back to the thing that I thought was most interesting about Terra Invicta once I actually got my hands on it and played it, is that whether you want, like, there's an old movie, I think I've talked about it during Terra Invicta. There's an old movie which is just an absolute delight as long as you don't think too hard while you're watching it, Independence Day. And the reason why I am utterly charmed by Independence Day is that it is a love letter to science fiction. There is just so many references to other stories, and obvious ones too, right? That, you know, it's very hard not to enjoy that kind of enthusiasm in a movie. And you know, I like the ending for the is it Dennis Quaid who plays it anyway, or Randy Quaid. Anyways, like the ending for that character I thought was really nice. Like, he's the butt of all of the jokes throughout the movie, but you know, when it comes right down to it, you know, he rises to the occasion and has his redeeming moment. But whether you look at that, or whether you look at War of the Worlds, or Arrival, or E.T. for that matter, there's a huge history of sort of stories of extraterrestrial visitors, particularly invaders, and all of these stories are about something, right? If you've ever watched the movie Arrival, I've definitely talked about this with Terra Invicta. One of the most memorable shots in Arrival to me is when, and just if you haven't seen the movie, I don't like. I'm not big. If you've read the blog, you'll know I'm not really big on spoilers, but on the chance that people might want to see it and it doesn't work for them, there's this scene in the movie where there's a message that's being translated, and it's something that is quite unexpected and very important. It raises the stakes about what these visitors are potentially here for. And there's already been this tremendous diplomatic effort to get the world to kind of work together to be able to translate the alien messages, right? Again, there's alien spacecraft all over the world. Each of the nations of the world have got their way of dealing with it, and there's right now international collaboration in terms of trying to figure out what to do about this. And then this extra bit of information, this one translation comes through, and it causes this flurry of activity, and everybody kind of has something that they may want to get out of that. And the way that they sort of represent the shift in terms of the way the world is thinking is that all of a sudden you have this conference call between all the leaders' worlds, and one by one all of the cameras start turning off. And again, this is the sort of stuff that you can imagine happening inside of Terra Invicta. In fact, one of the things that I've been working on, or I have the option of working on here, Publicize the Alien Threat, public opinion boost for the Resistance, and I'm trying to think, I think there's another event, or it could just be something that happens automatically, but where the presence of the alien threat causes the academy to lose support in a bunch of different regions, and so that provides you an opportunity to sort of do some purge missions and such. So anyways, again, I'm going on at great length here, but this is one of the things that, again, I think makes Terra Invicta really special, is that all of those moments from, books that you might have read, or movies that you've watched, all of those things are possible to happen here. And again, like I've tried to do both high and low culture on this, right? If you really like short stories, you've got more than a few that you can sort of pull on here. But if you just like watching a good summer tentpole movie, you've got some stuff to draw on there as well. But it's just one of these things that for strategy games, this is often a step that the strategy games don't need to take. Sorry, I forgot what tech I was looking for. But in this case here, again, there's something for this. There's something that this game is saying, and I really like the focus on sort of how it affects humanity, what path it takes. This is one of the reasons why I don't get immediately mad at the very complicated tech tree, because again, there's going to be different paths that are taken, and sometimes that's a question of who has the resources and the power to be able to sort of influence the world more effectively. And sometimes it may even just be a matter of chance, or maybe you just happen to be along a path that somebody else was interested in, and so they wound up helping you. Again, this is all stuff that you don't need to spend a lot of time thinking about if you don't want to, but I definitely don't think is a coincidence that it's present inside of the game. Anyways, here we go. This is a requirement for the following techs: advanced atomic manipulation, neural networks, predictive genetics. Tough call for me to say this is all stuff that I really need right now. So the next question would be, how much tech do I want to invest in chasing this down? I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to see what the first round of this gives us. We already know that we've lost to the Protectorate, but we're going to see if we can catch up with Project Exodus. So I'm just going to create a new section on my tablet. Also, we're almost done management research, so that's going to potentially free up some resources. But, okay, so we're at 12:13, 12:25. Cool. So getting close to the end, but I have a feeling we're going to be able to overtake them with enough effort. Oh, sorry, that was one other thing I wanted to see. I couldn't recall if... I don't think there was anything from the domestic politics. Institutional outreach and strategic lobbying... lobbying. Instruments of soft power, apparatchiks, psyops, guerrilla warfare, government network analysis. Yeah, so this doesn't do too much. Now, the one thing that's important to remember, too, is if I've granted the keys to different factions, it is possible that we'll see something like independence movements emerge, and it'll be a breaking of the world. So I was at a point where I had all 3 global research spots, but I think the AI, 1, is getting a little more clever in its allocation, and number 2, I suspect I'm falling behind in terms of my access to research. So I think it's a little column A and a little column B. I think moving on to Unity movements will... Yeah, Unity movements at least will let me start combining some Central American countries. Okay, institutional outreach, we gain an additional 5 orgs. That's tempting, but definitely not the sort of thing I want to put my other research on hold for. The real question is going to be whether or not we abandon our research on this end. We're now able to undertake the saltwater batteries. So one thing I will confess, when it comes
Public
to the
sentiment is increasingly with us.
when it comes to the
People will come to our side.
tutorial, I wish that I had a little more guidance from the game in terms of how I might want to go about constructing offensive, offensive capabilities. There's obviously a lot of techs that are built around being able to sort of fly ships out and blow stuff up.
Some threats. Cleaning things up.
That makes me happy. But it's not entirely clear where I should sort of be making my first moves on the tech tree. And I mean, maybe you don't need to... Nice. Control point lost. Ah, good lord. Everybody's trying to take Mexico now.
We're in control here.
Again, just trying to get those numbers
We failed to take control.
positive. Okay, we'll put that on repeat. So I'm gonna keep the Mexico. I'm gonna keep the Mexico
Ready to
slot
go.
because we're still in the positive number. Finland under control. The Protectorate and Canada have ended their alliance. I mean, Mexico is a good. It's a good pick. It's your gateway to the United States. And also, if they want to try and take Central America, I've got all these weak areas too. All right, so. We will do the same trick here. We shouldn't expect any differences
We're
on
taking
the
power.
legislature.
here.
Let's take Irina to purge Portugal.
Removing our enemies.
So again, the aim here is really just about disrupting the EU a bit. If we can get more friendly forces in there, so much the better. But right now, I'm just clearing out whatever I can. Which doesn't always make for the most exciting turns. So close. We completed the... Oh, that was for us. Okay. This is a big one for us. We'll presumably need some boost for it as well. Mines add space resources to our stockpile. Each base may only have one mine, and they are built in the slot to the north of the core module. Allows construction of the following hab modules: outpost mining complex, build in space, monthly support costs. Okay, so there's a power... A small but critical facility that mines and refines ore and uses an electromagnetic catapult to deliver the product to our other halves. Construction cost and power consumption scale with escape velocity and distance from the home space body. Okay. So, trying to think if we go more for the Xenoflora defoliants. Figure we probably should be... I probably should start interplanetary warships. Although, actually, I think the reason I was skipping that was because we don't have that under campaign objectives yet. So I am going to resist doing that just so I can do the tutorial in order. Energy Lab seems like a good idea. Sorry, I'm just trying to think. So I'm going to skip the labs just because it'd be better to start getting some surpluses of these goods before I start making new things. So I think I am actually going to do Xenoflora defoliants. And if I... like if I choke, then I don't know, I know what to blame. Okay, interesting. Let's just take a look at how we're changing on a few of these things. So solid core, we went up to 1364. Oh, it's neck and neck with Exodus. They're at 1354. So we are up 151. They are up what was that, 129? Sorry, 1225, 9, 4, 3, 2, 5. Yeah. So the thing that scares me is if I decide to... So we go from 7 a day to 6 a day. Well, that should still be enough to push things ahead. It makes me nervous to do this. But I am going to take a second here and... Oh, man. I don't suppose any of you happen to use an Apple Pencil on a tablet at all, do you? I am just going to rewrite this because I've got two things I want to look at now. So we've got photonic computing. So what I want to do here is just keep a close eye on how much the Academy's generating per turn. So they're at 119. Nobody else is close. So for the resistance... we generated 72. So solid core fission. X is 1354. Resistance is 1364. Only reason I asked was there's a way to tilt the pencil to make the eraser bigger, and I don't know if they patch something to change that or if my tip's just not working properly, but it's definitely not the sort of thing I want to spend a lot of time debugging on the stream. China imposes economic sanctions on the United States of America. Okay, so this is definitely going to be a... This is definitely going to be a case where I am spending some time to make some decisions. So, we now have the ability to build mines. I guess the first question would be which of the two mining objects do I want to build first? So I should have taken a look at that. Accumulate sufficient resources to build a mine, then select one of your bases in the HAB screen. So there was a cost. It'll probably tell me when I... So actually, in theory, right now, we have a small deficit of water and volatiles. So in theory, Piri Crater would make more sense. Although, in terms of the total amount of stuff that I would get, the Sea of Tranquility makes a little more sense. Anyways, let's start with Piri Crater. Okay, so for some reason, when I take a look at all the modules, mining complex. Oh, here we go. Okay. So what's the deal here? It's grayed out. So if I build it on Earth, I have the money. I do not have 56 boost. So building in space seems to make a hell of a lot more sense. Maybe this is the motivator to build I've never really had a good I've never had a good reason to build or like I've never really had a reason for building stations, but I suppose if I can build a station, that allows me to build the mining complex in space, and then I'm not trying to save up for eternity. Because like that's 2 years that I'm waiting to put one outpost mining complex in space. So we're going to go back to space stations or platforms are humanity's foothold in outer space and critical to industrializing space and building a war fleet. Stations are composed of modules that grant bonuses to research and other resources that allow construction of ships and additional modules. We should start stockpiling boost and a couple of points in mission control in preparation for founding a station. Save sufficient money, boost, and mission control to afford the launch of a platform core module, then zoom out to Earth to a distance that the nation boundaries are no longer visible, and click on the planet. From the icons at the bottom of the screen, select the found platform icon, select an orbit around Earth in which the station will reside, and confirm by clicking the found platform button. It may take several months to be ready to accomplish this. So, I will confess I'm really not that clear in terms of space stations yet, but I'm going to build it to see if we can lower our costs. So I guess the next question would be, which orbit makes the most sense? I'm not opposed to like something further out there. Seems like the costs are basically the same. Actually, if anything, for boost. Okay, low Earth orbit is the smallest. But high Earth, for some reason, seems to be the... I'm very curious about this mask. I'm going to start with low Earth orbit because it costs me the least. Okay, build a command module for space station, then an orbit. Again, I'm going to assume the further out you are, probably the better it is for moving your... You know what? I'm really, really tired of being told how to play the game. And I'm noticing that there are some names that really should know better at this point. And I've thought about actually switching to another game a couple of times tonight already. And frankly, like, I don't know. Yeah, thanks, Carlo. You're the reason why I'm going to stop playing Terra Invicta tonight if you keep with this. Like, the thing is that there's a bunch of people who have been really nice and have been, like, enjoying the playthrough for what it is, and I really do not like punishing them for the behavior of a small group of people, but I already had a really crummy day today, and it would be really, really nice to just sit down and play a video game and be able to figure it out for myself, like I have been completely unambiguous about since the very first day that I played Terra Invicta. And it pisses me off that I need to explain this to people, and the same people over and over again. Wow, sorry, I was just offering advice. Keep your advice to yourself, okay? I am tired of being nice about this, especially with that reaction. So I'm going to take a few minutes to myself because I think it really sucks that there's a bunch of people who are really nice about this and have to put up with me being upset right now. So I think it's better that I'm going to take some time away from the keys, calm down, get ready to enjoy more of this game. But honestly, if I see more of this stuff, I am just going to go back to playing 2 Point Campus because I really do not have the bandwidth to deal with this stuff tonight. Thank you, Kree. Anyways, sorry guys, I hate leaving it on this, and I do not blame you if you want to go and watch another Terra Invicta stream, but honestly, at this point, I don't know what to do. So, sorry, I'll try and make this as short as I can, but I need to do something, at the very least get a tea. Hello, Vanguard Master. I'm in a mood. Tell me a joke or I'm going to ban you. Not really. So, to the majority of people, especially the lurkers who were having a good time... Well, first of all, if you're still around after that, thank you. To the majority of people, whether you're a lurker or whether you're just a regular chat participant, thank you for basically having to pay for things that you have no control over. And I wish that I had a better way of dealing with it, but I, at the very least, can just get myself some more tea. What? I am guessing what. Anyways, so what I was going to talk about, good guess. You're homeless, nowhere else to go, warming yourself by the Terra Invicta. Well, you know, when Earth is in flames, you'll have bigger problems. So, what I was originally going to be working on was the idea of... I mean, there's one other thing I can maybe do, which is to take a look at the codex and see if it has anything, but I don't seem to recall that it does. We do, however, get some Shakespeare. Where's the best place to buy chair? I don't drink, or drink. I definitely don't drink, but I don't eat breakfast cereal. That's not entirely true. Well, it's not cereal, but I do have a waffle occasionally. We make guilty of our disasters the sun, the moon, and stars, as if we were villains on necessity, fools by heavenly compulsion, knaves, thieves, and treachers by spherical predominance. Tell me a good joke, or I'm banning you. So yeah, let's just take a quick second here and see if the see if there's anything about constructing hab modules in space. All space bodies and Lagrange points have one or more circular orbits from where factions can send fleets and build a limited number of space stations. Fleets don't require any propellant to remain in their position in orbit. Orbits close to the space body's surface are called interface orbits. These are orbits fleets can travel to in order to land or bombard targets on the surface. Around Earth, some HAB modules grant bonuses if they are in an interface orbit, as they provide greater benefits to the surface. Higher altitude orbits typically cost less delta V to launch from to reach other moons and planetary systems. Hence, the if this thing is going to be geared towards producing things that to send to the moon, that's why the extreme orbit seems to make a little bit more sense. Why can't pirates finish the alphabet? They get lost at sea. I've definitely seen that one, Elgrins. Actually, Brian on the Rocks, which some of you may recall, he did Sea of Thieves for Extra Life this year. One of my favorite things with... So Brian has the rare System Chalk sighting in person. So I used to know him when he ran a bar in Vancouver, and now he's at Respawn, for those of you who don't know him. By the way, if you are looking for a much more active streamer than me, much more sort of upbeat, Brian... Well, sorry, I can just do the new shout-out command. That guy. But yeah, he also works for a cool company. Used to work on Apex Legends, currently working on the new Star Wars game, whatever on earth that is. Yeah, the reason I mentioned this is that I saw him last year. So again, I got to know him at his bar, but he was one of the people I met when I went out to Vancouver to meet a bunch of game dev people, it turns out. Although it wasn't necessarily... Okay, it was deliberately to meet some game dev people, but not as many as I wound up meeting. And the funny thing is that he didn't know me. So he knew me when I was clean shaven, which is most of my life. But I had a big long beard at that time. And apparently, like, he didn't exactly walk by me, but he did see me quite early on. He was like, oh, that can't be him because he's got a big beard. And then, of course, I immediately recognize him, so I give him a quick wave. But what I loved was when he did Sea of Thieves shortly afterwards, he put on one of these filters. I don't think it was Snapchat, but whatever filter program he's using, and decided to do what he called the System Chalk filter. And sure enough, it's just this grizzled pirate with an actually curiously similar looking beard to what I had. Anyways, that's a dumb story, but Brian's great, and I actually like it when he does Sea of Thieves now, because I got a good laugh out of that prank. And I need a laugh right now. All right, so I suppose the argument here would be that this is it's probably better to build this further away from orbit. Some orbits are marked with a hazard symbol. These orbits receive high levels of radiation, and space stations built there required shielding and are much heavier and more costly than stations built elsewhere. Okay, well, let's not take the damage. A few orbits also produce small amounts of antimatter that may be harvested with HAB modules that you can develop. Cool. Habitats. Wait a minute. HAB sites. With the exception of the hellish world of Venus and gas giants Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, all space bodies have at least one HAB site where factions may build a base with a mine and other modules. Larger bodies will have 4, 8, 9, or 16 HAB sites depending on their size. When a mine is built, a HAB site will provide certain space resources to the faction that controls the mine. The type of resources generally depends on the composition of the space body. When first viewing the solar system, factions will only have estimates of the space resources a mine or particular HAB site can provide. To discover their exact potential, they will need to conduct a prospecting survey of the parent space body. Some HAB sites are marked with the hazard symbol. These sites receive high levels of radiation, and bases built there require shielding and are much heavier and more costly than bases built elsewhere. Okay, not quite helping me here, but let's go for habitats. Habitats, or HABs, are space-based facility. By the way, this is one thing that does slightly annoy me about the code. I like this codex quite a bit. There are a couple cases where I think that it could be improved, but the one thing that always does bug me, and I think it's because I tend to write some documentation myself, is I dislike the abbreviations before the definition. So, for in this case, right, we've got HAB sites that appears before habitats, but it explains what HAB is. Now, in fairness, you're probably going to figure that out on your own, but generally it's kind of like if I tell you, oh, I don't know, it's like sufficiently, well, okay, like the CPI went up 4%, okay? Most people now know that this is the Consumer Price Index, and if you don't know what the Consumer Price Index is, you may be able to infer from the title, okay, consumer price, things that prices people are facing, i.e. consumers are facing, index. Okay, so it's an overall measure, or it's some sort of tracking. It's like, well, what about the PPI? Oh, the producer price index. Oh, okay, so it's prices faced by the people on the other side of the transaction. Well, kind of. It's like, okay, well, how should they be related? And again, you get some mileage out of the titles, but if I just say to you the PPI went up by, X amount, you're gonna be like, what's the PPI? And then you have a bunch of explaining to do, or Googling, or maybe you just don't care because this is boring stuff. But it's a small kind of annoyance of mine whenever, because I tend to write about fairly complicated things, I try as much as I can to do the definitions before they appear. So, habitats, or HABs, are space-based facilities operated by factions. Factions may build two types of HAB stations, which go into orbit, and bases, which go at a HAB site. Both types of HABs come in three sizes. Stations grow from platforms to orbitals, then to rings. Bases start as outposts, grow to settlements, and finally become colonies. HABs are composed of modules. All modules have a core module. The size of the core determines the size of the HAB. The size of the HAB determines how many modules you can have, 4, 12, or 20 plus the core, and the maximum size of each module. Most HAB modules consume power. You must build sufficient power-generating modules to accommodate your other modules. Modules may be turned off to reduce power consumption, although certain modules must remain on if there is power to support them in the HAB. Modules also have a maintenance cost in space resources, which can be paid with boost and money if sufficient space resources aren't available. Some modules have a mission control cost as well. Founding HABs. HABs may be founded in three ways. One is to launch the core module from Earth using boost. This can take a lot of time if the location is far from the home world. A second is to develop and build kits that ships can deploy when they arrive in orbit or land on a space body. A third is to found HABs from other HABs in the same planetary system that have a construction module. So that's the catch here. We don't need to worry about assaulting Habs. Okay, so that's as good as we're gonna get. So I'm a little worried about giving up too much boost, but it does seem like we've got a better argument for an extreme Earth orbit platform now, so let's go for it. Platform founded, and we got the achievement Ad Astra. The Resistance has begun construction of a new platform, Limu Station, in the extreme Earth orbit. We've completed a found station objective. Stations will become more and more critical to our efforts. When you are ready, consider developing larger stations by researching the orbitals tech. To build stations further away from Earth, we will need to complete the Mission 2 public research projects. Build a new solar collector. Our new station can support 4 modules. Getting some lab modules up and running will help support our efforts to organize an effective resistance to the aliens. However, modules require power to operate. We are going to need a power generation solution for our station. From the HAB screen, select your station, then select the Manage button. Click and drag a solar collector into one of the 4 module slots. That's going to wind up eating more of my boost. But I guess we have to make some sacrifices. Although I am curious if it'll give me the option to do certain things. You may build this module on Earth and boost it to the hab. Yeah, I guess I have to, but that's not good for my overall boost. We've completed the build a solar collector objective. With the solar collector in construction, our station will soon be powered. Solar collectors work more efficiently the closer they are to the sun. We will have to find other means of power generation if we are to operate effectively in the outer planets. New objective, build a lab. Now that our station will be powered, we can build a lab. Labs provide a diverse set of bonuses, typically to the body they orbit. Choose from the available labs or research a new lab, faction engineering project to unlock a new lab, then build the lab on the station. Alright, that's definitely taken me down a path that I didn't want to go to, and it's going to take me boost to do it. New project available. We are able to undertake the Fission Pile project. This will be for when we want to build stuff on Mars. Okay, so I suppose one thing that I will want to consider... Let me just see here. Completed.
Public opinion is moving in our direction.
We've moved the needle.
Sorry, just catching up on the notes. Okay. So, one thing I want to do is take a quick look at our options for technology. Looks like we're still ahead. Okay, I'm feeling a little more confident. Hello, Chunky Man Gamer. How you doing? Okay, construction module. This project is 100% chance of unlocking for us to research after all the prerequisites are filled. Accelerates the production of a tier 1 hab module at this hab and allows... Okay. I am intrigued by... So it says build in space. Or I guess tier 1 module would be... That's building from Earth. But it would seem to me... So if I'm getting this right... Oh no, it's from Platform Core, so presumably we can do construction module whenever we want, and it's probably not a bad idea for me to add that to the list at some point. Okay, well we'll see where we're at. My boost is very scarce, but I suppose when it comes to the race, everybody else is gonna struggle. Oh wow, our base is even further away than Luna. Oops. How's opinion in the United States? Still shrinking. What do they think of us in Venezuela? It's okay. I mean, I could have just looked at the... I could have just looked at the distance. Okay, we've completed management research, which gives us a little bit of a boost for our management capacity. Although, again, by 5 is not, like, that's not really moving the needle, right? So, I suppose the question is, do I want to keep going on... Like, do I just want to have one that's constantly dedicated towards management research? Or do I want to... Like, basically, there'll be one which is about completing objectives and one that's about boosting my overall caps. I think what I will do... let me just go back to the tech tree for a sec. So social science lab seems like a fairly decent one to go for. If it's going to make me build a lab and I'm going to be focusing on uniting Earth, probably a social science lab makes some sense. So for now we're going to continue contributing science. But what I may do is I may just kind of bump up the research that I'm giving to some of these other projects. It is November 7th today, so maybe it should have been Mass Effect. It only would have taken me like 3 weeks to get to the eyeball at speech.
Now in charge.
Okay, this is good news, although
We'll be ready for new orders soon.
we're in the negative numbers because it's Mexico. Although maybe we're going to be able to abandon... Well, we'll see.
Our people have taken control.
Okay, well, we definitely want to abandon Portugal. Just trying to think if there's anything else I can give up. We've already given up Colombia. It occurred to me that... Oh, no, we've got what we need. Actually, sorry, the thing I should have done before, and I don't think I can now. Oh, yes, I can. Even though we abandoned the country, apparently we can realign its spending. Okay, yeah, I am going to have to wind up giving up something to Mexico, I think. Let's run it out for... yeah.
We will never know if Lise Meitner and Otto Hahn even dreamed that their discovery of nuclear fission would one day be used to build spaceships. Let us hope, nevertheless, that we would have made them proud. Chancellor Li Qingzao, keynote speech at the Spaceport Summit.
When nuclear fission was discovered in 1938, few would have believed that we would one day use it to launch mankind into the vast endlessness of space. And yet, based on our foundational work in achieving nuclear fission in space, we have now created the first generation of solid core fission systems to power both habitats and spaceships. By using solid fuel made of heavy radioactive materials, such as uranium dioxide or plutonium oxide, we can create a reactor that sustains the chain reaction even in zero-G. The first fission reaction is activated by bombarding the solid fuel with slow-moving neutrons to overcome the binding nuclear force that holds the nucleus of an atom together, releasing a flood of neutrons and energy as it breaks apart. This released energy is captured as heat by pressured water cooling systems designed for space. This is an advancement that will enable new and larger habitats beyond Earth's orbit, and spaceship drives more powerful than ever before. Future fission systems will likely employ molten gas or core fuels, which our researchers believe will put us on a more even footing with the alien visitors. Increases the global nuclear fission tech level by 1, buffering the world against energy crises. Following technologies may now be researched: molten core fission systems, and the following projects may unlock for us to research in the future. Our current chance to unlock a project once all prerequisites are fulfilled is also shown. Solid core fission reactor 1 and nuclear freighters. This is Terra Invicta, Chunky Man Gamer. So this is a grand strategy game about what quickly appears to be... So the way the game handles it, it is not entirely clear what the aliens' intentions are at the start, but it does become quite clear as the game progresses that they do not come in peace. So you play one of several factions that are sort of responding to this news, and essentially what you are trying to do is align enough of Earth's nations and resources towards your particular ideology so that you can achieve whatever goals you're looking to in relation to the alien threat. So I'm playing as the Resistance, which is the only faction that gets a tutorial. There's sort of the more traditional XCOM, kind of the more XCOM-ish style run. There's also one called Humanity First, but Humanity First is a much more extremist organization, which also considers alien collaborators to be equivalent to the aliens, and essentially, as far as they're concerned, it's they're fair game as well. But you also have other groups. So you've got the servants, who essentially are a fifth column for the alien invasion. And then you also have groups like the Initiative, which, as far as they're concerned, this is just an opportunity for them to grab power. But yeah, it's again, when you say grand strategy, this implies the mobilization of all of a nation's resources. So soft as well as hard power. And it's fairly clear early on that the goal is not to really focus on the nations of Earth so much as the nations of Earth are an opportunity for you to build an infrastructure to be able to face the alien threat in space. I'm slowly making my moves towards that, but I also have terrestrial concerns that I'm sort of flopping around with. So we do get to set the global research agenda with this one. I think... Yeah, so the Protectorate's running away with the international relations. There's two paths that I can go down. One is to say we have one that's dedicated towards our agenda in terms of oh, hang on, we can't do unity movements because we haven't finished international relations. Well, that makes it easy. That makes it easy then. We just try and find the closest way to get the construction module then. So construction module comes after. Interesting. So we've got platform core. But it needs industrialization of space, which is actually very expensive. Huh. So, what I may want to do here, this is where I start getting a little tricky in terms of how I do research. So again, there's a lot of stuff that we can... There's a lot of stuff we can run with, right? I obviously am going to like arrival economics. So one of the things I'm thinking of is, so one, I would like a tech that is fairly inexpensive to research, number one. But because my intention here is to use this as a launch pad into the next... kind of the next project that I want. So it's got to be cheap, but it's also got to be one that I have a high research bonus for. So I think maybe I just get to see that under Intel. No, I do not get to see myself under intel. I used to know where this was. It doesn't tell me here. There's essentially I'm just trying to double check what my, so like if I go for social science, that doesn't give me my research bonus, right? So I was just trying to sort out where my biggest research bonus comes from. It doesn't help me. Add my, I always thought this was the faction window, but it's not. It's my resistance objectives. There it is. Okay, so we're receiving the following bonuses to these research categories: space science 15%, energy 10%, life science 1, information science 5, and xenology 9. So in this case, I want to focus on space science, which with luck, yeah, there we go. So we've got advanced heat management concepts, which is 2,500. Not great, but it's probably the best I can do. I don't want to do mission to Jupiter. In situ resource utilization is kind of interesting, but I'm not really mining asteroids, and it seems like the other factions have a bit of an edge on that. It's also really telling here, now that I know I've got the category bonus of 15%, this explains why it was so easy for me to dominate the research agenda, because we were doing a lot of space science techs, and that wound up, like again, I was getting an extra 15%, so this would explain why I was able to get the three lots sort of dominated. So, completion may unlock the following technologies and projects for research: potassium heat sinks, sodium heat sinks, lithium heat sinks, and molten salt heat sinks. Requirement for high temperature superconductors, mission to the inner planets, and visible combat lasers. Yeah, we're just going to begin this research because it's the cheapest one where I have the highest level. I think I'm going to roll back the contribution because I've got the bonus, but we're probably going to refactor a few of these as time goes by. I do want to try and catch up with the Academy if I can. We're getting there, but I suspect it'll be a bitter struggle.
We were unable to establish control.
That is fine. You can repeat that. Again, we're not really trying to get the objective out of that so much as China's open control point with good boost income. Yes, I would love to take China. No, I don't think that's happening. Okay, what are we going to do here? Oh, crumbs. I actually should have paid attention to that. There we go. Okay. So, definitely going to abandon this one. I do have a tough decision to make, though, right? Like, do I abandon all of Mexico for the sake of, minus 0.23? I think I do. Which, of course, means it's kind of ridiculous I abandoned that other nation, but it helps us repair our influence. It has been a while since I've taken a look at ops, so we've got Agrippa Surveillance, which will make him... that'll boost my ops. Also espionage, but it's not really... now the Troleus Trust, even though it costs influence, I think this is actually a good one for us to pick up. As is this one. I may have to mess around a little bit with the... Okay, so I'm definitely picking this up for its influence income. Now, I do have someone who would be better served as a scientist, Nancy Ford. So their investigation's actually not that bad, so maybe we'll hang on to that. It's actually slightly annoying that this character has such fitting groups. But yeah, what we're going to do here, we'll supercharge. And I guess Ruby gets Deneb? Well, that or we can give it to... Well, I can get a super spy here. Okay, yeah, so you get Agrippa. Which I guess means Ruby does wind up with the Deneb engineering. And I don't think... Okay, nope, we can increase some administration. So the funny thing is I probably didn't need to... I actually probably didn't need to abandon Mexico after all. Oh well. Oh, we're getting nice and close. So he's got to be up in the 20s now, yeah. Okay, things are starting to look up, I think. Hey, Jock, just want to know if I know about the eclipse, telling anyone you know who may be able to watch. It's the last lunar eclipse for the next 3 years, if I recall correctly. But yeah, no, I actually appreciate you mentioning. I appreciate you mentioning that. Because often I found that I find out about them sort of after the fact. That's tomorrow, right? Tonight, my apologies. Okay. This is why I'm glad. What? It's at 5:17 a.m. I'm not getting up for that now. Well, all right, guys. Thanks for watching. I gotta turn off the stream and throw away my tea. Okay, I'll see if I can catch. I'm glad you brought it up then, because I was totally gonna get that. Wrong.
Ready for orders.
Okay, let's think about more trouble that we can cause in the world. I think probably our best bet is to do some more purges. Now, Ruby is particularly good at purging things. So let's think about some groups that we want to cause some trouble with. Okay, looks like we actually aren't as well positioned for Tehran. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just... It's like Chad's not that important to me. Actually, there is one that I'll do, which is one that I've kind of wanted for a while. We can purge the Caribbean states. Actually, I wonder if we can coup it. Although that would be one for Arena in that case. Yeah, that's not happening. Okay, so let's go... Again, where I can, I want to sort of put the screws to people who are more hostile to me. I suppose the next effort would be to do crackdowns, but looks like the... Looks like the world's pretty safe. Okay, so we don't have a hope in France right now. Let's maybe go... It's weird to be knocking out the initiative here, but it helps me go after the servants.
Standing by.
Ruby,
for
on the
orders.
other hand, we are going to try and take the...
Terminating the opposition.
Gonna sleep soon here, but just letting people know. Yeah, thank you very much, Florashi. I appreciate it. Okay, good enough for me. We're probably still losing ground in the United States. Yeah, we're at 43 now. How are we doing in Venezuela? Well, growing, but could be better. Then the last thing that I wanted to do was just see what our progress looks like in terms of science. So unfortunately, Exodus is beating us on the heat management concepts. And apparently I'm not investing in... That can't be right. Okay, this is going to be a problem. So let's go 3 and 3 for these two. So for photonic computing, the Academy's now up to 197. I'm at 153. So they had a change of 78 in contrast to mine, which was... Oh, interesting. Mine actually was just enough. Or was it? Yeah, mine was 79, so I was one point ahead of them, so probably not bad that I boosted the resources going in there. Heat management concept. So the thing is, I really don't actually feel like I should be putting this much science into a race with the Exodus. The catch is that there's only so many sliders you can use, right? So, I mean, then the next question, right, is like, well, why are you, like, if the Protectorate's so far ahead on arrival international relations, why don't you abandon that? It's like, well, that's the tech that I actually want to have happen, right? So I want some amount of research being contributed to it, given that this is the thing that's going to unlock some unifications. But... with all that said and done, I'm going to see where we're at. Sorry, I should be writing down what's happening with heat management concepts. Essentially, if I can, I'd like to have two fields of research where I'm dominating the agenda. Interestingly enough, the Academy is actually the next highest. So we'll see what the next turn brings. We're probably going to lose Mars, but we're now able to undertake the solid core fission reactor project. Allows the construction of the following ship components: solid core fission reactor. We will do that at some point, but... And I'm assuming this is going to mean that we will have an alien unit to fight reasonably soon.
We've moved the needle.
We're winning their hearts and minds.
We are in control now.
Well, that makes me happy. This is never like a huge priority for me, but it's just kind of nice. It is in my... It is sort of in my circle of influence, so I figure the more of the world I can shift to my way of thinking, that's not a bad spot to be.
We still lack support.
What's going on there? Oh, that was Columbia. That's fine. Protectorate failed a Mexico purge mission, even though we couldn't see the agent. And Azerbaijan has initiated a space flight program. Cool. I do need to... I was talking about this before, but like noticing that Canada wound up with a spaceport again makes me sort of pause and think maybe it's not such a big deal that you don't start with a nation with a large space program. Although, to be honest, like, I don't really believe that. Like, I think it's probably not a bad idea to have it's not a bad idea to have a bit more going on there. How long are we going to be waiting on you? August 1st. Okay. Soon.
Controllers, about 15 seconds to CSM act.
So while the number's positive, I'm not necessarily going to go out of my way to to drop certain regions. Norway, under the control of the servants in India, have formed an alliance. They will defend each other if attacked and have the option to join each other's wars of aggression. So I'm wondering if this is them just messing with the politics, knowing that we're about to take it from them.
At your service.
Let's get...
Reporting in.
Again, in this case here, I'm more about purging than anything, so let's...
Targeting the opposition. What's the op?
This one, again, I don't mind trying
Taking
to control
control.
nation.
Ready for my mission.
That wasn't quite what I had in mind.
We're taking power.
Ready for orders.
And I still think it's not a bad idea that we're continuing to invest in the United States.
Ready to go.
There's got to be a point at which I say we're not investing here anymore, but I haven't hit that level yet. Okay, UK and Myanmar have ended their alliance. Pakistan and Laos have ended their alliance. Italy and India are now allies. Norway and India are now allies, and Japan and the Philippines are now allies. So at least some of that is definitely servant behavior. Although the initiative's done a good job of getting its hands on the UK. So what's interesting here, right, is to see how the initiative treats a country like the United Kingdom compared to how they handle... Actually, you know what? I think Venezuela will be a good example. Right. Well, even then, that's interesting. They didn't seem to put it in spoils. So what if we try an African country? Huh. Do we have any examples of... Like, South Korea doesn't really count as a developing nation, but... Because the defaults for the initiative tend to be pretty brutal in terms of just pulling resources out of a country. They probably wouldn't go nuts on Russia. Yeah, they're just investing fully into the military here. Anyways, neither here nor there. And I wasn't paying attention to the science, so I'm just going to take a quick minute to review. So, Academy for Photonic Computing is at 324. I'm now at 297, so we should be catching up. So, 324 off of 197. Wow, they really shot up. What am I looking at here? So, we've got 127 compared to mine, which would be 144. So as long as we keep on this pace, we're going to beat them. Advanced heat management. Jesus, yeah. We might have a little bit of an advantage there. I think I'm just going to keep... So the Academy's just given up, as you can see. So Exodus is at 119. I'm at 156, which means they may still be able to beat me. So they got 111 for their efforts. I got... Nope, I was behind, so I actually have 151. So as long as we maintain this... setup, we are good. The catch is, of course, that we're not investing in the Council Engineering project as a result. But again, this is helping us kind of claim the research agenda again, so I'm going to stay with that. I'm going to stay with that approach for now. A large wildland fire has broken out in the Juba region of South Sudan. This game's actually also not all that bad for teaching you some geography. Here's a question for you. I heard something weird about the rights for the Invisible Man.
Public opinion is moving in our direction.
But I have
Public
done...
opinion is moving in our direction.
I have done some books on stream before. Would anybody be interested in hearing War of the Worlds on stream at some point? A brush war in the Great Lakes states has caused significant damage. And a violent revolution has overthrown the government of the Great Lakes states. Alright. Alien base detected on Triton. Ooh, that's getting close. Okay, relatively, right? Obviously, Neptune is still very far away from the world, but like obviously the aliens are successfully building a lot of bases, and we still don't have an answer for taking them out. So okay, well, we knew that was going to happen at some point, but we've more or less worked out our responses
We've
for
removed
this.
some threats. Cleaning things up.
Our people have taken control.
Oh, that's nice. Again, we're going to wind up abandoning a few of these, but
Our presence is growing.
okay. We're actually going to start abandoning right away. So, first things first, United Kingdom under the control of the Initiative and Norway have ended their alliance. Under the control of Servants and Norway have ended their alliance. Finland under the control of the Protectorate and Norway have ended their alliance. So where I'm going to go now, we've got our super spy Ruby Byrne, or super criminal Ruby Byrne. Oh! So looks like I'm going to have to crack that first,
At your
so
service.
Irina will help us out with that. Interesting.
Going after their people.
I was definitely not
Ready for my
expecting that to
mission.
be as difficult as it turned out to be.
Bringing them on board. Where do
Let's-
you need me?
I'm still going to get Ruby to help out on the purge. We might get lucky.
Removing our enemies.
We're really dominating as far as the relations are concerned, but doesn't seem to count for a lot when it comes to trying to unseat the Initiative. So much the worse for me, but there's not a lot that I can do about that. So we will also abandon Norway just because, I don't have the resources for it. Well, let's try and keep Central America for a bit. If I need to, I can always switch it around. Oh, revolution in Honduras! It did tell us to... pay attention to what was going on there, so that's just on me. We've completed the construction of a new platform core for the Limu station in extreme Earth orbit, so I'm just going to continue for a bit. Wants us to build a lab, so when I can, we'll deal with it. Nancy's going to move from Venezuela to Honduras just to get that back into the fold.
We've moved the needle.
Public sentiment is increasingly with us.
Oof!
They slipped away from us.
They locked they've actually locked that down pretty tight. I think I am actually going to try and get lucky with the crackdown, because Mexico is pretty central to my approach here. This is, of course, the thing I was worried about. Okay, Cambodia. That is something I'm not worried about losing, so Project Exodus can have it. But yeah, I think basically Irina's going to get locked down into Mexico. That's 2 that we've just lost to the initiative. So the initiative's not just making a play for Mexico. Oh, Jesus, they took the executive point, actually. So it's not just the fact that we're... it's not just the fact
We've
that
got
they're
our people in place.
taking Mexico and locking it... Or sorry, it's not just the fact they're taking Mexico, it's the fact that they want to stay there.
Remains in power.
So, I'll do my best with what I've got. So we take... take Ruby. We'll try and purge the executive. I'm not spending any points on that. We're going to crack down... We could try cracking down the executive, but I think... Well, maybe that would be a good idea.
Targeting their center of power.
Where to?
Nancy
What's the
will claim Honduras.
Establishing our presence.
We're at 0, I think. I'll hang on to what I've got right now.
Your orders?
It's actually more successful for us to try a crackdown
Going after their people.
with our persuasive guy, so... We'll see if that works. That was a weird set of decisions that I made, but... Okay, initiative's trying to get Ceres. Okay, yeah, you locked that down too. So I'm assuming they're just going to gobble up the rest of Mexico at this rate, which is inconvenient for me, but it was a risk I was willing to take. I wasn't exactly going to be sitting at 0 influence for the rest of the session.
Winning their hearts and minds.
What I should have done though was taken a look to see if there's any
They
more
slipped away from us.
goodies that I can get. So Chameleon Strategic Communications is very tempting. So I think I'm going to repeat that mission.
Target got away.
So the only thing I can say here is it's like it'd be nice to supercharge one of my persuaders. Actually, this isn't as hard as just add it to him. That's fine for Norway. Yeah, they're taking Mexico. I don't think there's any way that we escape this, but we will do our best. Oh, we're totally kicked out of Mexico now.
We failed to take control. Mission is a no-go.
Okay, let's see
Where
what
to?
we can do.
Applying pressure on their people.
Ready.
At your service. Targeting the opposition.
Standing by. Turning up the heat.
These are like almost certain to fail, but they're the sort of thing that I'm still willing to take. I'm still willing to take these actions just because it is a priority for me to try and get to get Mexico back, or at the very least to sort of inconvenience them. Now again, this may just wind up like Canada, right? I sort of accept that. Oh, I also need somebody to help us lock this down.
Ready to go.
I'm gonna risk it for a little while now. But yeah, like basically we'll do the same thing that we did with Canada, which was wait for an opportunity to come up and reclaim Mexico. And again, this is just because, you know, I can't have everything. So I'll just kind of accept that it's a crummy situation and move on. I think he needs 20s, right? Yeah. Okay. I didn't take a look at how all this was progressing.
The people will come to our side.
Non-sapient alien life forms. Oh. Okay, I'm just gonna have to accept the crackdown of the oligarchs in Venezuela.
Target's lost.
So I'm gonna have to move Irina to
Target's got away.
work on the life forms. I tend to pay up for that, if I recall correctly.
We were unable to establish control.
Sisters and brothers, I remind you the Lord said, "Shall the axe boast over him who hews with it? Or the saw magnify itself against him who wields it?" It is our destiny, our right, to embrace the marvels He has seen fit to provide us. The enemy would have you believe this is playing God, but nay. We are taking dominion of our world and claiming our rightful place at His right hand. Superior Judith Howell, Xenobaptist Sermon.
3 weeks before the night of cleansing flame, our current computing devices depend upon passing a current through increasingly tiny microchips. But the laws of physics present barriers we cannot circumvent. The road to the future is not paved in processes shrunk by a handful more nanometers, but instead in light, using photons rather than electrons. By replacing electronic data transfer and storage with photonic or optical equivalents, we can dramatically increase both the speed and efficiency of our computational capabilities. Though optoelectric hybrids exist, these systems lose nearly 30% of their energy due to the inefficiency of signal conversion. Wholly optical circuits remove this inefficiency and thus can process algorithms at a speed beyond the reach of traditional devices, while consuming far less energy. At last, we have our first working photonic chip. This is the breakthrough we have long needed, one that will ultimately birth an even brighter future of quantum computing and true artificial intelligence. So, unfortunately, even though I was putting some points in on, the social tech, we're back in the situation where we don't have what we need to be able to move on our unification. So I could do the same rule as last time. The problem is that it's now 5,000 for the space stuff. I'll see if there's any of these are. I don't think any of these are going to be requirements for missions. At least it doesn't state it as that. So vacuum electrostatic principles is slightly more tempting because it's my next highest level. Yeah, I'm basically just trying to think of what's the smallest cost to me. Let's go vacuum electrostatic principles. I like throwing things in space. Something something Isaac Newton. Something something eyeball it. Okay, so Germany split out of the EU. What's the deal here? Protectorate's breaking up the world. Whose side are they on? At some point, because I have a surplus of influence, I may want to start reaching out to some of the other groups. Also, okay, no, we haven't rolled over on.
Our associates were unable to take control.
On the turn.
Ready to go.
Okay, so Irina's gonna go attack the aliens, and we usually only get one shot at this, so 64 is a lot to spend on ops. I'm willing to do 16, though.
Taking it to them.
Italy under control of servants, and
Boarding
Portugal have ended their alliance. Denmark under the protection and Portugal have ended their alliance. Germany under control of the Protectorate and Portugal have ended their alliance. Czech Republic under control of the Protectorate and Portugal have ended their alliance. Poland under the control of the Protectorate and Portugal have ended their alliance. Everybody hates Portugal now. Fifth Guards are now under control of Project Exodus. Fair enough. Okay.
Your orders?
Ruby still probably has a chance. Well, not much of a chance.
Removing our
What are we
enemies.
going to do, though, right?
Where
Well,
to?
maybe it's better that we go after the initiative.
Targeting their key people.
Standing by
Nancy
for
Ford, I still
orders.
want working on that.
Standing by for orders.
And
At your service.
seems to me like I want to keep I want to keep I want to keep things going for the United States. Oh, and we also don't need to renew the diplomatic. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I'm really not sure where. I'll admit, okay, I went less experimental this round than I was expecting. I'm not really sure where we're gonna go with all this. One last thing I want to do is just get a read on the science. So the good news is, in probably next turn, we're going to sorry, just writing down. Yeah, probably next turn we're going to have Arrival International Relations, but it's the Protectorate that's deciding the next level, and then I'm going to have to dedicate a lot of science to... I'm going to have to dedicate a lot of science to try and catch up with that, which may lose me these other two. Although we can probably afford one turn of experimentation, so... In any case... I never really intended to make the leftmost component something that I would dominate, but obviously I do have an edge. It actually may be a good one for me to go for because it looks like Exodus and the Academy don't have the same bonuses. So So for me, I'm at 9. For Exodus, they're at 6. For the Academy, they're at 6. And then for heat management, so they went from 119 to 607. So that's what, 488? Does that make sense? No. How is that? 498. And then 150 or 769 minus 6. So in theory, we could throttle back a little bit. Not that much. 2 points? That's a lot. I'm going to try it for 1 turn, but I have a feeling I'm probably just going to crank that right back up.
The differences in our languages are irrelevant, for we all grow closer to those near us in times of distress, creating community where once there was none. Today I ask you to do just that, for humanity's future depends upon us all sharing one unifying vision. Director Khalid Al-Ashqar. Public remarks at the first Project Exodus facility.
The balance of international power has always been a delicate thing. Resource scarcity, contested territory, conflicting ideologies, ancient allegiances, naked greed. These are but a handful of the factors that have shaped the course of human history. The addition of a sentient species of uncertain intent hailing from worlds unknown only serves to complicate international relationships even further. Old alliances are tested as new players seek to capitalize on the disruption, while individual nations' self-interest reign supreme. Looming large above it all is the variable of the aliens themselves. Will they prove to be a common threat, or will they tip the scales towards a fortunate few? If our world is to keep turning, its many nations must establish a better way of working together. After long and arduous negotiations, we now have a template for a new kind of international politics, checks and balances that will be essential to keep our planet relatively united in the face of such unprecedented change. The following technologies may now be researched. Unity movements. This is something that we're going to be moving on to. What is each? I can take a look. Omega Knight Red. Following projects may unlock for us to research in the future. The current chance to unlock a project once all the prerequisites are fulfilled is also shown. I'm guessing you probably wanted to see the Intel window. So yeah, the Protectorate's kind of the stalking horse on the numbers. So they're not giving up Mexico anytime soon. Oh well. Let's see what they chose. Arrival sociology. Yeah, so
move the needle.
Unless I want to go all in on that, I don't.
We lost their trail.
Okay, that's fine. This is like a 1 in a million working out. North Korea has decided to leave its federation with the Republic of Korea.
Target remains operational.
Oh, now that's interesting. Yeah, no. So I had always thought that you only get 1 attempt at that. So we were repelled by the target's defenses and failed to do any damage. So that was a roll of 95. There's not a whole lot. I think we probably would have failed that even if we spent all of our ops. So I'm glad I didn't. Denmark has initiated a spaceflight program. Poland has initiated a spaceflight program. And Thailand has initiated a spaceflight program. So I'm actually just going to take a... Sorry, that's Sweden, not Denmark. Weird. Well, I guess the 29% of the budget is going towards boost. That's Vietnam, good God. Now, I would not have expected to see Humanity First so focused on spoils. Anyways, that's more curiosity rather than anything. The Alpine States has initiated a spaceflight program, and Taiwan has initiated a spaceflight program. Alright, that's your permanent assignment. You're not allowed to leave Honduras until you succeed.
Our enemies are still in control.
Again, these are like 1 in a million shots, but I do need to come up with a better system for seeing what's going on in the world. I think he needs 22, yeah. Do I even have any space left for... So UNESCO would be a really good way for me to gobble up some more influence. The question would be, where would I find those 3 points from? This actually works... No, sorry, that's Nancy Ford. So the investigation works rather well, but she doesn't really do a lot of investigation activities. I think I'm just going to let that simmer.
Where to?
Okay, Ruby's working on what I want her to do. I kind of feel like we need to maintain our position in the U.S. because you'll notice that the resistance share has kept going down, even though we are persuading the population.
Ready for my mission.
I still think this is worth investing resources in. So yeah, it's a question about Arena. Now again, the alien life form's gone. So I suppose this just comes back to our good old-fashioned Mexico. Ah, they've surrendered it.
Terminating the opposition.
Cool. Lucky me.
Mission in progress.
Let's maybe make sure that Ruby is focused on the right. Oh, I've committed everyone. Drat. All right. I'm debating as to whether or not I want to do another round. No, sorry. There is one more thing I want to do. I was debating on wanting to do another round, but I think in this case I'll leave it. But we get the... Okay, I will do one more round because I'm about to finish the social science lab. But what I want to take a look at is the speed at which people are researching other things. So vacuum electrostatic principles, Exodus is up to 88. So that's a difference of 82. I'm up to 157. Oops. Sorry, wrote it on the wrong spot. So obviously I'm tremendously overinvested in that. That's 151 for me. Now the real question here is the advanced heat management concepts. So for that, we're now at 873. Compare that to Exodus, which is at 696. So in this case, they went up by 89 compared to my 104. Cool. So if I pull back on research here, we've got a big gap to overcome for arrival sociology, but there's an outside Okay, I'm gonna go really silly. I'm curious whether or not we can... I'm curious if we can get greedy on this. That's going to be something that I figure out for next stream, but that's a... I want to mess around with that. We've completed the social science lab. A think tank hosting several researchers devoted to the study of political science, economics, and communications, which for some reason needs to be in space. Adds +1 strength to our successful public campaign missions if the module is an Earth interface orbit, to a maximum of 9. Only allowed in Earth Luna system or above worlds with 50,000 population. All tech category bonuses from HAB modules are subject to diminishing returns once above a 50% cumulative bonus. So again, I'm gonna wait till they tell us to research this stuff. So what's the cheapest tech that I get? Well, okay, there's two options that I have. There is the management research, which is long-term but helping my cap, which would be a really good idea, or I do something... Well, actually, you know what? We don't have quite the same urgency, so I'm gonna select management research as a long-term run. And now... So yes, we can afford it.
Okay, Bob, I'll be standing by for your call out shortly.
I'm assuming I'll get credit for that. Either it's probably not when I unpause. Yeah, I have to actually build it. Okay, so it's about a month. Oops, sorry. I get a little overeager on the zooming in and out. So, where are we at? Well, again, the original plan was to try and get some mines set up, but it's clear, like, waiting 2 years to get a mine set up is probably not the right way to go. And ostensibly, I am still trying to go through the tutorial. So in this case, they are directing me to build a lab. In fairness, they're also directing me to build a mine. But the hope here is that because I didn't have a very good idea about what I wanted to do with stations in the first place, it's maybe not so bad that I'm taking some time to work through the preliminary steps of building a station. And again, I'm assuming the good news is that all of the other factions are going to be struggling to get mining resources up to space like I am. As far as terrestrial matters are concerned, I'm a bit lucky that the initiative got bored with Mexico, so we will be able to clean them out there. The bit of good news is that I'm pretty sure if I just go to the tech tree. So international relations, yeah, that on its own doesn't get me anything, but I can at least do unity movements now. Which will start moving. It'll kind of start moving me towards some of this unification, which is, again, the idea is that it's going to help me out with my command problems. But of course, the other thing is right, again, I don't want to spend too much time focusing on making the world, like reshaping the world in my image. That's still a very long-term project for me. One thing I would like to do again once I restore sanity in Mexico, if nothing else, just make it so that, you know, there's a bunch, like, even if there's just places that I've sort of set up a placeholder in and I've abandoned, it's nice to have that as opposed to all this, you know, empty space, which doesn't really have that much going on in it. And again, there was sort of these efforts to combine the EU. Now, it seems that sort of the shenanigans that the other factions have done have made it a bit harder to unify Europe. But that's not necessarily a long-term positive for me either. I mean, it is a place where the Academy is fairly strong, so I suppose there's that bit of good news. But overall, right, like, it's not necessarily desirable that there be any strong areas where factions that are more sympathetic to the aliens are. I think also one faction I should be keeping an eye on, so India is a bit scary, but just taking a look at Russia and the fact that there's so much control from the from Project Exodus, there is going to be a nice alignment between us as far as like building spaceships, but again, I'm going to want to pivot those spaceships towards blowing stuff up, whereas I'm pretty sure they have other plans. But again, we'll see where it's all going. Again, I'm making some there's some of this is subject to speculation just because I'm still trying to figure out the best interplay between there's obviously the ground, like, it's pretty clear. I think this is the plan in the real world as well, that you start building, you know, you build a space program on Earth because that's where you live. But the real heavy lifting is going to be happening in space. And one nice thing is that there doesn't seem to be the sort of shenanigans you need to do when it comes to mining. Like, it just kind of seems to be, no matter how far away a planetary body is, you're just kind of able to magic the resources anywhere it needs to be within the solar system, which is nice because at that point, presumably my industry sort of takes off. But again, all that's going to be stuff that we worry about in the future. One thing I did forget to mention last week was that, or last Friday, I normally do Against the Storm on Fridays, and I might still, but it is Remembrance Day on Friday, so I definitely want to go to the cenotaph. Like, I want to do, go to the ceremony for sure. That's during the day, so that's not that big of a deal. Oh yeah, so for those of you who are not Canadian, November 11th is when we mark, I believe particularly the Second World War, but clearly it's grown to something bigger. In this case, remembrance of essentially all of the conflict that we've been involved in. But that is oddly enough, it isn't actually a public holiday, but it is a day that I get off. I tend to notice that most employers are sort of shamed into giving that off, even though it is not like a time where you'd be paid time and a half for working. So traditionally, I have kept some time for myself on holidays, and I'll probably do that on Friday as well. And one big reason for that is, particularly when I'm feeling frustrated with streaming, I am reflecting on all of the things I need to get done. There's a bunch of video editing that I need to do. There's writing I need to do. There's a bunch of stuff which I would really, really like to get on top of. And I think one really good way of diffusing some of that frustration is to take it would be nice to take a break too, but one thing that I can do is I can at least channel some of that energy into something that's like a day off, and use that to catch up. So all of that's a long way of saying this week we'll definitely be back for Wednesday for Industries of Titan. I may not be back Friday for Against the Storm, and it is certainly not for lack of interest in Against the Storm, but just rather reflecting on the reality of how I normally do this stuff. And then next week we will probably be back with Terra Invicta. But again, if Against the Storm doesn't get done on Friday, I may want to do another. Monday's kind of become Hooded Horse Day, but there's a lot of good Hooded Horse stuff, including Old World, which I really want to get back to. And the final note, if aliens ever visit us, I think the outcome would be much as when Christopher Columbus first landed in America, which didn't turn out very well for the Native Americans. Stephen Hawking. I wonder if they'll make the soundtrack available when the game gets its full release. In any case, thank you very much for watching. Let's take a second here and see who is online. There's definitely more of you here than I thought there would be, so thank you for that. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to shout out the Wolf Arok. So the Wolf Arok is more of a retro streamer, so I think he's been going through Max Payne, and I believe he finished Max Payne 1 yesterday and is now moving on to Max Payne 2. But I do notice that there is one other streamer, the Bickering Bunch, who is doing Terra Invicta. Now, I've not... the one problem I'm running into a lot, once I start doing sort of like unlabeled... like... Once I start hosting streams that I don't know, I've actually had a run of some streams where I've wound up regretting it. And I really don't want people who are quite pleasant to hang out with to suffer for that. But I do think it is nice to be able to support Terra Invicta, particularly, again, because Hooded Horse did give me a key for it, and I was a Kickstarter backer. So I'm going to host the Bickering Bunch, but I will just stress that I don't know this streamer. I hope they are good. I hope you enjoy hanging out with them. But just, I feel now I need to at least preface the hosts by saying, you know, I sadly can't really endorse people anymore when I raid them. Because I just don't know what's going to happen. But anyways, I hope it's a good one. I hope you enjoy Terra Invicta. For those of you who are only here for Terra Invicta, again, most likely next week. For those of you who are just here for my sunny disposition and my coughing directly into the microphone, I will see you all Wednesday for Industries of Titan. And I rather foolishly did not hit the enter button on the raid, so we're now going to awkwardly sit and wait. And, oh, come on, there's more of you than that. But yeah, no, I need to let the timer go down. But yes, again, thank you everybody for watching. I will see some of you in a few days. The rest of you, I hope you find what you are looking for on this streaming platform and that you are not subjected to too many ads. Well, assuming that I'm up for it, I am not a morning person, Vanguard, so it's gonna be a tough one, especially because I'm still gonna do my writing tonight. Anyways, have a good night, everybody. Please enjoy the Bickering Bunch's Terra Invicta stream.
Alright, it's not funny anymore. I'm over it.
Are you though?